Hi everyone, this is Design Start and today we are going to talk about constraints. So constraints is a very interesting concept in Figma. Basically this laid a foundation for auto layouts that I will mention in the next videos, but basically constraints is probably one of the things that are connecting designs in Figma with an actual web development. So let's talk about constraints a little bit. So constraints are applied to frames. So let's draw a frame and I will try to show you visually what constraints does. So here in the frame, we can place an object, for instance, rectangle. And if you can see here, we have the section called constraints. If I move this object out of frame, we will not see that because constraints works only inside a particular frame. So again, let's bring it back. And now basically we have this thing that are constraints, and you can see basically where to lock the position of an object inside the frame. To make it more easier to comprehend, let's create another one and change this constraint from left to right. Now, the magic happens now. So if I decide to change something with this constraint, for instance, I go here, nothing changes, right? And it's logical. But if I go to the right, you can see how things changes. It's because this part is stick to the top corner and right corner. And this one is stick to the top corner and left corner. And if I go left, the same happens here. So now you should understand the general idea about constraint. And we also may do something like that. In this case, if I go down, you can see that basically this one is, because in this case, this one is tied to top and to the bottom. And basically this will follow the shape of this frame. Well, this one is stick only to the top, so it will not go anywhere. So basically you can, work with these constraints and you can apply them according to your needs. For instance, you can do it like that. And then it will be just stick to the center, to the middle, and nothing happens. And then if I go like that, it still stick to the middle, but it also follows the frame. And the distance is the same always, if you can see that. For instance, if I do it like that, you can see that this also follows this frame, because basically I decided that it should stick to the left, to the right, and to the top. I can also remove it from the top, and in this case, it works like that. You can see that in this case, this one is scaled because it's selected like that here. It like this one is in charge of left and right part, and this one basically horizontal one, and this one is in charge of top and bottom and basically vertical axis. And if I do it like that, it should happen, just happen like that. And then if I decided to align it to the right, nothing changes here, and this will follow this one. So you can play around with this concept. It's more easier to understand it by yourself, just checking out different options. The most important part to know is that if you want to work with constraints, the object should be inside the frame, and these constraints are related to the frame. Basically, the position of the object is relative to the frame, and all your constraints will take into account the position of the object inside this frame. Basically, you can use constraints in scalable things. For instance, let's imagine it like that. You do a frame, then you add the text. And this text is aligned to the left and to the top. And then, for instance, I want to add an arrow, which will be like that. Imagine this is typical interface card, where you have a name, an arrow, and that do this arrow like that, and the text is aligned to the left. So now, if let's copy a couple of them, place them under each other. So this is like a typical card element in interface. But then if you want to scale it, for instance, you created this card for a small screen, and then you want to also use this card for the bigger screen. If you actually increase the size, it will follow the screen. In this case, you don't need to redraw it from scratch. You can just copy it and then stretch it basically, and this will be enough. That's all for constraints now. See you in the next videos.